as we approach the end of semester one, and in fact the end of the calendar year, I thought a bit of introspection, a bit of catching up, sort of where are we now moving into 2025 very, very soon. And one of the things that's, sort of, I suppose, got to be thought about is something that I can't really talk about. It's not something that just involves me. And as much as I'm an open book and use this, as much as anything to get my thoughts out sometimes, if it's not solely my thing, it's not very appropriate to share it. But let's just say it's been stressful, there's been stuff going on, errors have been made that we are rectifying. Not our errors, necessarily, the people involved, but people who should have been there to do things haven't done their job right. Again, not going to go into it, but we are rectifying it. Things should be on the turn, and I really hope I haven't just jinxed myself. So with uni, I've of course kept them informed of this situation, the fact that there has been something going on which has divided my attention. And I'm a firm believer of that. You can't expect your work or your place of learning or whatever to support you and help you if you don't tell them what you need support and help with. And it doesn't have to just be academic or work related. If you're having trouble at home, it is going to affect you. As much as people like to say, "Oh, leave your troubles at the door," that's not possible. We're not robots. So having an understanding team, like I say, whether it be employment or education, who can, hear what you're saying and kind of say, well, we will be here to support you in whatever way, that really does help. And they have been great. I've even had other students say, don't come in sometimes, because they know that I'm the kind of person to push through and, burn myself out just to get through it. But they've said, no, don't do that. Make sure you take time for you. I mean, one of the recent things we've learned about is the compassionate self and self-care in counselling. And that isn't hashtag self-care like social media. It's not going to get your nails done. That's not self-care. Sorry to burst that bubble. But proper self-care, like checking in with yourself, how you're feeling, why you're feeling that, what can you do to mitigate that if it needs to be, or how can you integrate that, move forward, etc. It is properly checking in with yourself and making sure you are capable of doing whatever it is you need to do in life or school or whatever. And so, yeah, I've taken that on board. I have taken time off and I felt less guilty. And because I've been communicative about it with everyone who needs to know, I've had good responses back of like, yeah, you take the time. We know that you do the work. And that's really important. It's one of those where, the validation really comes in that I seek so much. But yes, so whilst we're talking about the end of the year and uni, assessments are a thing. Now, one is definitely done and dusted. It's an ethical dilemma, and I don't like them. In fact, one of the people involved in teaching that even says that they don't like it and put that on the module feedback, because if many students do not enjoy this and would prefer, like we did last year, to do a personal development essay, which is what they said they would prefer as well, because you can show that growth year on year, put that module feedback in and hopefully it will change. So, I will be putting that in because I did not like it. It was a chore. It wasn't really enjoyable, but it was something I needed to do to tick the box, and I don't like that. One of the other parts of the assessment is, well, attendance for one, but that's a whole other problem, but it's a reflective journal slide that we'll then have an informal discussion over in January. So we have until the 6th of January to send it in, but I'm like, well, I've got themes that have already come out from what's happened, and I think it's a really strong theme for me to talk about because it's still coming up in weeks later. So I can say I did this early to get it off my plate, but this is something that did come up. That shows that I've still continued to have that journaling process, that reflective process. And yeah, it means that I don't have to worry about that slide. That's done. That is out of my box or whatever. The next thing to go in, well, we have the MCQ one. I can't remember if I told you the results of that. So that was 77 I got for MCQ one. That was multiple choice questionnaire one for the Dev Bio through the lifespan module. And then we have another one in a week and a half-ish, I think, from the time this goes out off the top of my head. Something like that, a couple of weeks-ish there. But so as long as I do a similar kind of level, I'll be happy with that. But then it will also give me a bit of breathing room on the unseen essay, which will be happening in January. That is an exam condition, hour long. I get a bit extra because of accommodations. But yeah, an hour-long essay on a particular question that's been covered in certain topics through the module. So if I can give myself that breathing room, there'll be less stress on that one, because the multiple choice ones are online, it's at home, and a much more comfortable environment. I don't have to stress over it. We've got 24 hours. I mean, once you hit start, you've got half an hour from that point, but you've got 24 hours window to start and complete it. So it meant that I could do it at a time like, right, I am prepared for it. I've revised. I know exactly what I'm doing. Go. Like I say, it's giving me that breathing room, because whilst I obviously want to get as good as I can, as you always should aim for, I only need 55% for the module to be able to do certain modules next year that I might want to do. So yeah, I may just basically just have to pass and nothing more. As long as I get 40 and above, I should theoretically be able to pass the entire module at the level to get onto that. Like I say, I do want to get higher, but it's knowing that the bare minimum is this. But I'm not a bare minimum kind of person. The other one that I'm kind of having trouble with somewhat, because it's very involved, is the other module, the only one remaining, and that's the qualitative one. It's a research report around identity. So I had a really good, interview with my participants, got some really good stuff out of them. But it's, spending the time going over, through the transcript, well, through the audio itself, first of all, to create a transcript, then reading through that transcript, taking notes on it, your first sort of exploratory pass, then sort of bringing some of those things, further into analysis. And yeah, it's a big chunk of work. It's a lot of time and effort. And some of the issues that we've had going on at the moment have meant that I haven't been able to devote the amount of time that I would have liked to have devoted to it so far. I've got about a month left, with a month and change, and I don't know if that feels enough, being completely honest, at this point in time, as me recording and releasing this. By next week, who knows, I might be like, okay, I've got a bead on it. But at this point in time, it is a concern. I'm getting very conflicted between that thing of looking after myself, but making sure I've got to get this done. So I'll see how I feel. Like that's an ongoing project. We'll see what happens in January's part. If I'm still panicking over it, I will do what I need to figure out. If I'm still struggling, what can I do to facilitate me not struggling? Don't worry. I'm on this. It's just I'm being open and honest on the things that I can be. But in, I suppose, good news to end. Well, hopefully good news. I did have my autism assessment appointment recently. Now, it's not one where, at the end they're like, yes, you're autistic, or no, you're not autistic. It's one where they, go through it. There was a pair of them conducting the assessment themselves, and then they'll collaborate on it, and then I think it'll go to a team as well, just to sense check it, just to make sure that, they are applying the right descriptors in the diagnostic manual. But yeah, I'll know. They say 6 weeks, but obviously we're very aware that this is December and Christmas breaks, things like that happen. So I've said as long as I get it by February, I'll be happy. And we'll see what happens in a future video. I might, if it comes between like the January and February ones, I might just do an ad hoc one, just saying, by the way, I might just do a video on, being autistic or not. We'll see what happens. But obviously, I'll be happy to share whatever the result is. That's the important thing. One of the questions asked was, what would you feel if you didn't get the diagnosis? And I'm like, well, I'd have an answer. We all seem to think, that is me, my partner, and my mum, who were all in the room, we all seem to think that, like, it's very likely. They've got the pre-screens, they've already done that. Apparently a third of the people who get to this stage do end up not having a diagnosis. So that's still a 2-to-1 kind of ratio of diagnostic or diagnosis to non-diagnosis. So it bodes well. But like I say, whatever the answer is, I'll have an answer. That's the important bit. But I think that'll do for this month, and like I say, for this year, technically. So yeah, I hope you'll join me for all the fun stuff coming. I don't know if I've got an actual Christmas thing to talk about. Uni's been taking over my brain, which is technically the right way around, but still. I'll not think about that. But just get this assignment done, then I'll think about that. But yeah, whatever's coming down the line, hope you join me for it as usual. And until next time, take care.